The early morning sunlight cascaded across Alexandria Harris's sleek black sedan as she navigated the quiet suburban streets of Oak Ridge. Her perfectly pressed charcoal gray pantsuit and crisp white blouse spoke of her professional status, though nothing about her appearance screamed police commissioner in that moment. At 45, Alexandria had fought hard for every inch of her position. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, she'd watched her mother, a school janitor, work multiple jobs and instill in her the values of education, persistence, and dignity. Those lessons had carried her through law enforcement training, through the ranks, and ultimately to her current role as the first black female police commissioner in the city's history. Today's meeting was critical. The Police Oversight Committee was discussing systemic reform, and Alexandria had spent weeks preparing comprehensive data about racial profiling, officer accountability, and community trust. She knew every statistic, every case study, every potential counterargument. Her hands remained relaxed on the steering wheel, her speedometer precisely at 35 miles per hour in the 35-mile zone. She was methodical about everything, including driving. Years of professional training had taught her that perception matters, especially for a black woman in a position of power. The unmarked police cruiser pulled up behind her, its presence sudden and intentional. Alexandria checked her rearview mirror, her breathing steady. She knew the protocol. Keep your hands visible. Stay calm. The white officer approached, his body language tense and aggressive. His partner remained in the passenger seat, scanning her vehicle. "Ma'am, do you know why I'm pulling you over?" The officer's tone was confrontational, his hand casually resting near his holster. Alexandria met his gaze directly. "No, officer. I was maintaining the posted speed limit. We clocked you at 42 miles per hour, he stated, not as a question but a declaration. She knew this tactic. Intimidation. Projection. A power play designed to unsettle her. "I respectfully disagree," Alexandria responded, her voice calm and professional. "My vehicle's cruise control was set at 35, and I'm quite certain of that." The officer's eyes narrowed. He seemed surprised by her composed demeanor, her articulate response. This wasn't fitting the narrative he'd anticipated. What followed was a textbook example of racial profiling. Despite Alexandria's polite and professional interaction, the officer issued a court summons, knowing full well she was driving within legal limits. As he handed her the ticket, Alexandria maintained her composure. No anger. No raised voice. Just a steady, penetrating gaze that seemed to say, "I see exactly what's happening here." Her plan was clear. She would use this incident as evidence. Documentation. A case study in the very systemic issues she was fighting to address. The ticket wasn't just a piece of paper. It was ammunition for change. #the hearing. 3 weeks later, Alexandria stood in the municipal courtroom. Her evidence was meticulously prepared: dashcam footage, her vehicle's computer data, GPS tracking, and a comprehensive report detailing the stop's inconsistencies. The courtroom was her stage, and she was prepared to perform with surgical precision. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady and authoritative, "this isn't just about a traffic stop. This is about a broader pattern of bias that undermines community trust in law enforcement." What followed was a masterclass in professional accountability. Alexandria didn't just defend herself. She used the incident to illuminate systemic issues, presenting data about disproportionate traffic stops targeting people of color. The judge, initially skeptical, became increasingly attentive as Alexandria methodically dismantled the officer's testimony. By the hearing's end, not only was the ticket dismissed, but an internal investigation was initiated into the officer's conduct. #aftermath. Alexandria didn't seek revenge. She sought understanding, transformation. In the weeks following the hearing, she implemented new training protocols focusing on unconscious bias, community engagement, and procedural justice. The traffic stop that was meant to intimidate her became a catalyst for meaningful change. Her mother would have been proud. Alexandria didn't seek revenge. She sought understanding, transformation. In the weeks following the hearing, she implemented new training protocols focusing on unconscious bias, community engagement, and procedural justice. The traffic stop that was meant to intimidate her became a catalyst for meaningful change. Her mother would have been proud. The day after the court hearing, the precinct was abuzz with tension. Officer Michael Reese and his partner, Tom Harrison, were called into their captain's office, a summons that felt more like an impending execution than a routine meeting. Captain Jennifer Walsh sat behind her desk, a manila folder open before her. Her steely gaze made both officers shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Do you gentlemen recognize this woman?" She slid a professional headshot across the desk. Reese leaned forward, his face draining of color as recognition dawned. The poised, articulate woman who had just dismantled their credibility in court was none other than Alexandria Harris, the city's police commissioner. "Oh God," Harrison muttered, his hand instinctively covering his mouth. The implications were instantaneous and devastating. They had not only pulled over the highest-ranking law enforcement official in the city, but had issued her a fraudulent ticket, attempted to intimidate her, and fundamentally violated every professional standard they claimed to uphold. Captain Walsh's voice was ice. "Explain." "No," Reese stammered. "We didn't know who she was. We genuinely thought Thought what?" Walsh interrupted. That it was acceptable to harass a citizen based solely on the color of her skin? The internal investigation that followed was ruthless. Body cam footage, radio communications, and witness statements were meticulously reviewed. Alexandria had ensured every moment of the interaction was documented, not for personal vindication, but as evidence of a systemic problem. Within a week, both officers faced serious disciplinary action. Reese was suspended pending a full review, and Harrison was placed on administrative duty. Their records, previously decorated with commendations, now bore the mark of racial profiling and professional misconduct. But Alexandria Harris was not interested in personal revenge. Her approach was always systemic, always forward-looking. In a press conference that would become legendary in law enforcement circles, she spoke not about the individual officers, but about the culture that had allowed such behavior to persist. "This isn't about two individuals," she stated, her voice calm but powerful. "This is about a system that has historically permitted unconscious bias to masquerade as law enforcement. Today, we begin real change." The press conference became a turning point. National law enforcement publications picked up the story. Police departments across the country began reviewing their own practices, their own unconscious biases. That evening, Alexandria sat in her home office, looking at the dismissed ticket. To anyone else, it might have been a moment of triumph. But for her, it was just another step in a long journey toward justice. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "They didn't know who you were, did they?" Her mother's knowing laugh echoed through the speaker. "No, Mama," Alexandria replied. And that was exactly the point. The revelation wasn't just about two officers discovering they had targeted the police commissioner. It was about a system being forced to look at itself, unflinchingly and honestly. Change, Alexandria knew, happens one uncomfortable moment at a time.